Captain's Log, Supplemental. There are a few sacred episodes in the original Star Trek series that fans will fight over if you dare question their brilliance. Balance of Terror, untouchable. Amok Time, legendary. But City on the Edge of Forever? That one, that's not just a fan favorite, that's the crown jewel. The one where science fiction finally grew up. The episode that told audiences, yes, we're on a starship, but this story is about us. Time travel, tragedy, a love story that hits you right in the warp core, and a moral dilemma so painful, Kirk himself nearly buckled under its weight. But for all the praise it gets, and rightfully so, there's a story behind the story. A tale of writers, egos, and one very, very angry science fiction legend. Because City on the Edge of Forever, as we know it, was born not just out of imagination, but out of conflict. Let's beam back to 1966. Harlan Ellison, one of the most respected, volatile, and brilliant writers in science fiction, was hired to write a Star Trek episode. This was a big deal. Ellison was already known for cutting-edge short stories, groundbreaking prose, and a reputation for, shall we say, not suffering fools lightly. And what he delivered was nothing short of epic. An award-worthy teleplay dripping with pathos, moral ambiguity, and high drama. A time travel noir with a sci-fi twist. But here's the thing. Ellison's version was completely different from what made it to air. In his draft, the time stream is altered not by McCoy accidentally injecting himself, but by a drug-addicted crew member named Beckwith. A guy who kills another officer, escapes through the time portal, and ends up in 1930s Earth, where his presence alters the course of history. Edith Keeler is still there, still noble, still tragic, but the mechanism that ties it all together is darker, grittier, and far less Starfleet Ian. Even the crew dynamics were skewed. Spock wasn't the measured voice of logic. He was colder, more dismissive. Kirk was emotionally distant and far less noble. And some drafts even show Scotty involved in shady black market dealings. It was not the utopian Federation Gene Roddenberry had in mind. So, what happened? Well, Gene read Ellison's script and said, "This is amazing, and we can't film a word of it. Too expensive, too complex, too morally gray for a network show trying to survive its first season." What followed was a cascade of rewrites. First, Roddenberry took a crack at it, then Gene Kuhn, then D.C. Fontana, then story editor Stephen Karabatsos. At one point, Ellison got so frustrated that he used a pseudonym, Cordwainer Bird, when talking about his credit. If that name sounds like a middle finger in literary form, it's because it is. The battle raged behind the scenes. Roddenberry publicly claimed Ellison's original script had Scotty selling drugs. Ellison fired back. Hard. In fact, he never let go of the grudge. Not in interviews, not in conventions, and certainly not in his 1996 book, where he published the original teleplay, with an intro that reads more like a phaser blast than a preface. But here's the part that's truly wild. That original version, the one that never aired, never got filmed, and was heavily rewritten, it won a Writers Guild of America award for Best Dramatic Episode. Let me say that again. A version of an episode that never saw the light of a TV screen won an award for Best Television Drama. Only in the world of Star Trek could a battle like that end in both parties technically being right. Ellison wrote a masterpiece. Roddenberry aired a classic. And both became part of television history, with very different footnotes. Now, you may be wondering, how much of the original survived? Well, the core remains. The time portal, the tragic love of Edith Keeler, and the gut-wrenching moment when Kirk has to let her die to preserve the future. That heartbreak? That was always there. That was Ellison. But the path to get there? That was rewritten, rerouted, and rewritten again, until it became the streamlined, emotionally devastating episode we now know and love. And maybe that's part of what makes City on the Edge of Forever so special. It's not just a powerful hour of TV, it's a perfect example of how collaboration, even messy, angry, lawsuit-threatened collaboration, can create something timeless. It's ironic, really. An episode about the fragility of time, the importance of choices, and the price of sacrifice was itself the product of compromise, collision, and a decision to sacrifice one version of a story for another. And just like Kirk, standing there on that street, watching destiny take its course, Roddenberry made a choice, one he believed was for the greater good of the series. Was it the right call? That's up to you, dear viewer. Because in the end, City on the Edge of Forever is more than just a story. It's a battleground, a love letter, a warning,